pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. Calanda.
Mr. Applebaum?
Here.
Ms. Steele?
Here.
Mrs. Feldman?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mrs. Mogerman?
Here.
Dr. Ciartino?
Here.
Mr. Major?
Here. And checked the sign-up sheet, and I do not believe we have any citizen statements for the tax rate hearing, but Ms. Kelly, is that still accurate? Okay. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the tax rate hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 6.0. Items for review or action. 6.01, hearing on proposed 2010-2011 tax rate. Call on Chief Financial Officer Wes Garton.
Thank you, President Major. Good evening, President Major, members of the board, Dr. Sinti, and Ms. Calanda. I'm here to discuss setting the 2010 calendar year tax rate. Later on this evening, I'll be asking in the regular board meeting to approve not only our tax rate ceiling, but also our tax rate. Last year was trying because of a legislative omission to our property tax bill. That was supposedly the design of it was to reduce volatility when political subdivisions set the rate. The legislative bill had the best of intentions, with a goal of reducing volatility and providing all patrons an advance notice of their estimated property taxes. Here is an overview of tonight's hearing. First, we're going to talk about the recommendation. Talk a little bit about that bill, Senate Bill 711. We're going to talk about the proposed rates, our assessed valuation, the impact on our homeowners, and we also want to discuss the voluntary rollback because it's still there and intact. The goal of tonight is to reset our rate to its 2008 equivalent level. Senate Bill 711, created during the 2008 General Assembly session, left this district millions short in 2009. Resetting the rate is vital to current programs Parkway has implemented to help kids be successful. What I want to do a little bit is to discuss what happened in 2009 that caused the district to receive less money. Senate Bill 711 was passed, I know it seems an eternity ago, but in 2007 we had reassessments that were actually 22% we had on average of an increase. The General Assembly took it upon themselves. They wanted to establish a bill that would reduce the volatility with the best intentions and also give the taxpayers a much more advanced notice than what they received in that 2007 year. What it changed was it created restrictions in growth during a reassessment year, 07, 09, and 2011. Those are the years we have reassessments. And then we can only access a voluntary rollback, or if you establish a tax rate or you have a rate levy change, you can only access that also in 2008, 10, 12, 14, and those even number years. And one of the big things, and this is going to get us into the reason that we had issues, was it allowed assessors 31 extra days to create or go through their final assessments for those who were challenging their property assessments. One important thing that was unintended, but it was an erroneous omission, was there needed to be a corresponding date change with when we actually had this tax rate hearing. We kept that, or it was kept in the bill and set for August 31st. If you remember, we always do this the last meeting in August. So what took place was we had to use July's preliminary assessments to base our rates on that particular assessment. And final assessments didn't come till September 15th. And what ended up occurring was final assessments fell 11% between July and September and resulted in a $3.25 million revenue reduction. This reduction will continue unless rates are returned to the original rate. Here are the proposed rates for 2010. You can see them for residential, agricultural, commercial, personal property. We also have our blended rate and our debt service. As a reminder to the board, our debt service levy pays for principal and interest payments from our bonds issued, and the remaining rates, they pay for our day-to-day operations. Here's our assessed valuation for the year. As you can see, it's $4.437 billion. It's essentially even, just down 0.25%. You can see the breakdown. We have a little over 61% in residential, a little over 26% in commercial, a little bit larger than 12% on the personal property, and what I always call a smidgen of agricultural. As you can tell, because property assessments are essentially the same year over year, if 7-11 doesn't occur and create the issues, our tax rate would have remained relatively unchanged. Here's the impact on homeowners. I usually like to show this. I think it's important. You can see that an average $250,000 market value house, this is Parkway property tax only. The 2009 was $1,620. 10 will be estimated around $1,690. There's about a $70 difference, and that's about a 4.3% difference year over year. One of the things I want to remind everyone is we do have a calculator on the district's website if people are interested in checking their Parkway property taxes. Future things to consider under this law. The district can only access their voluntary rollback, if you remind, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, the voluntary rollback in even years. They have fixed the rate. Since we're here in late September, past September 15th, they have fixed that so that we can actually set the rate based upon the final assessment, so we'll have an accurate rate when we have these meetings. And the most important piece of this is, as we go down Project Parkway and we come to our findings that we see, is we need to plan 2 years ahead, because we can only access, if we do need our voluntary rollback to do anything according to the Project Parkway findings, we have to do that in even years. And our voluntary rollback, if you remember back when we passed Prop R in 2006, we ended up having the ability to have a voluntary rollback. Essentially, the $16 million that we have in that ability to assess has stayed essentially the same since then. So we've been good stewards of that responsibility and have only set the rate that would meet basically the needs of the district. Before I ask for questions, I have a couple of things I would like to add. I wanted to say that the district continually looks at its operations to ensure the district is being fiscally responsible. Recently, and an example of this is recently a retirement happened with the district manager. After assessing the situation, we determined that the two positions could be melded into one. The district takes every opportunity to monitor these situations and to be as efficient as possible and be very respectful of the patron's money as much as possible. Lastly, I do want to make one more note, and it's about the money lost last year. By statute, we can recoup that money according to law. Many St. Louis County school districts are having to set their rates to recoup the money in order to maintain their programs. All we are asking this evening is to reset the rates, nothing more, to their 2008 equivalent level. The district can maintain its programs without accessing the money loss that we had in 2009. And with that, I'd like to take questions.
Board members, do I have questions to my right here?
I think you answered my questions.
Wes, I appreciate this. One of the things I asked you for is I just wanted to be able to, I wanted to see where we stood as a school district relative to other school districts and their tax rates on their properties. And I noticed from this that you've given me, and I'm gratified to find out we're 17 out of 21, meaning there are 16 with higher rates above us. And the question I would have, though, if this were not approved or were approved at some lesser amount, have we put pencil to paper to figure out, well, what gets impacted in Parkway if we...
We haven't gone to that level of that, but it would be programs. We'd have to take a real hard look at existing programs, and we would have to reduce it equivalently.
Okay.
Bruce.
Oh, sorry.
And thank you for this, Dr. Senti, today, the comparison with all the other districts. And it appears that every single one of them on this list is restoring the rate, except for the two that are already at their ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me, too, that everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. I mean, this left all the districts kind of, like I said before, the bill really had its best intentions. It just was an error and omission. And, it did leave, they tried to correct it even last year, but it was caught up in some bureaucracy, and it was actually vetoed at the governor's desk to help fix it. So we're kind of just caught where we had to set the rates without, really getting the final numbers. And that's important. You can see that it adjusts according to where your assessments are, and without having that final number, it really can play a big factor in how we handle, how we receive our revenue.
Thank you.
The valuation that they are in, and essentially it's just very minor change from last year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, if you look at it in total, that's correct. There's a couple of them, like our agricultural. It over the last 3 years has been essentially the same, and it was kind of a funny anecdote if you ever get into this stuff. But they get into the appeals process, and we have a couple of pieces of property that moved from commercial to agricultural, and they just happen to be on West Chesterfield Parkway, which I find kind of interesting. But it's kind of figure out how that works. But you know what? That's kind of the process. So.
Hopefully they're not growing a cash crop.
Exactly. Maybe they just set a tractor out there or something just to make sure it happens.
Well, I did have one follow-up question to one of your slides that showed the tax bill in 09 and 010 for a representative $250,000
Sure.
house. And you mentioned that the assessments dropped 11% in the 09 when we had the gap.
Yeah.
So what was essentially we
had
handed out a tax cut to our
yeah, we
property
did,
owners.
and
Is
it's
that right?
essentially the same. I mean, basically, if we're just resetting the rate, I mean, that's basically
So it's
in essence.
that $70 delta is
That's correct.
Is essentially what we lost.
That's exactly right.
In 09.
That's exactly what we were doing. That's exactly what was kind of caught with there.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then you also mentioned the term ceiling a couple of times, and I was. That differs for each district? Is that correct?
It absolutely does. It's based upon a voter-approved ceiling. Our ceilings. You'll see that in the meeting, in the regular meeting, in the first motion. Those are set by computation from the auditor's office at the state, and that's basically the numbers that we have. And with SB 711, that's another thing we have to do. Is to, if we want to, continue to have those ceilings, we have to vote on them now. So.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing further from the board, since this is a tax rate hearing, and we did have an opportunity for citizen statements, but now there's an opportunity for public comment on what you've just heard. Is there anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to say about what they've heard regarding the tax rate? Hearing none, we will move on to, I guess that's the last business of the tax rate hearing. So we will have a vote on the tax rate in our regular meeting. So with that, can I ask for a motion and a second to adjourn the tax rate hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Tax rate hearing is
Thank you.
adjourned. Thank you.
Those things last forever, so you don't have to worry about it. I have one of mine that'll last 6 hours, so.
September 22nd, 2010, regular meeting of the Parkway Board of Education. If everyone would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. Calanda.
Mr. Applebaum?
Here.
Mrs. Castillo?
Here.
Mrs. Feldman?
Here.
Mr. Jacob?
Here.
Mrs. Mogerman?
Here.
Dr. Ciartino?
Here.
Mr. Major?
Here. 3.0, special recognitions. We have none. 4.0, additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. Call on Dr. Senti. I believe we have
You have the notes there in front of you.
deletion of one personnel item from page 1, Mike Cosgrove, and deletion of 10.21, approval of in-computing. And the personnel item would be under 10.02. 5.0, citizen statements. I have a sign-up sheet here. And could I call on Robin McKee to step to the platform and state your name and address? Or I guess address would be sufficient, Robin.
My name is Robin McKee. I live at 1 Dogwood Trail East in Pacific, Missouri. I'm here tonight representing the Parkway nurses. So good evening, Dr. Senti and Mrs. Klanda, Mr. Major, and members of the board. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I want to tell you that the Parkway nurses are breathing a big sigh of relief. We are starting this year without the threat of a nationwide pandemic. But of course, we'll continue to educate the public about the flu. And we'll monitor staff and students in the community for symptoms of illness. We'll again offer flu shots to Parkway staff and their adult family members and reinforce the teachings of good hand washing and proper respiratory etiquette, and hopefully we'll have a relatively healthy flu season this year. But tonight I wanted to take the time out and thank you for the approval of our student health database and documentation system called Health Office. We have worked very hard over the summer adapting the program to our needs and training the nurses and nurse assistants and sub-nurses to the program. And we're now able to enter student visits with just a few clicks of the mouse, using features such as quick administration for medications to templates to enter common ailments. It's just a wonderful, wonderful program. The reporting program is amazing. We can supply you with a wealth of statistics, data that is valuable to our district as well as the County Department of Health and other agencies. I can tell you that 440 students in this district have a food allergy, 1,239 have asthma, 817 have ADHD or ADD. I can tell you that 28% of the medications that we've given so far this year are classified as stimulants, which are medications frequently used to treat ADHD and ADD. I can tell you that 133 visits were for psychosocial or mental health visits of our students. And try not to scratch your head, but 224 visits were parasitic exams, otherwise known as head lice checks.
But no bed bugs?
Thankfully, no. We all have vinyl cots. No. But this data provides us insight into the health and well-being of our students and the challenges that they face at home and at school. We know that sometimes the nurse is the primary or only link to health care, so this information has the potential to make a change in how we as a district can remove those barriers to learning and help students achieve academic success. We'll continue to keep you updated with monthly statistics, significant trends, and use our unique role to help students learn. So thank you again for your support of our practice. I have for you a copy of our most recent newsletter. So Mrs. Klanda, if I can hand these to you, I will distribute these. And they're also available online. All of the nurses are emailed them, so they're available on each school's newsletter as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you will receive a reply in writing. And could I call Susan Nachman? And if you would state your address when you get to the podium.
Hi, Susan Ackman. My address is 14477 White Pine Ridge Lane, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63017. I guess I don't need these. Good evening, Dr. Senti, Ms. Calanda, and the Board of Education. As a Parkway parent and a member of the community at large, I feel that I need to bring a matter to your attention. In the last few years, since the economy has gone in a downward spiral, I feel that we need to look at the procedures that are in place for all of our fundraisers, including elementary through high school. Why? There's too much emphasis put on unnecessary spending and not enough on the necessities. For example, do the fifth graders need to have a final recess off premises? Does the middle school have to plant a tree for the Forest Award? And does the high school have to fundraise for unnecessary competition trips like dance team, choir, band, and cheerleading? I am co-chair for Project Graduation 2013. We have made a conscientious decision to decrease our expenses to almost half. Do these kids need gifts or gift cards? No. The kids need to be safe on graduation night. That is the whole point behind Project Graduation. It is not that we are being lazy, but feel that those families that are struggling in these unstable economic times should not see funds being spent on frivolous items. Please take into consideration that we need to come up with procedures for fundraising to make sure that the money raised is going towards necessities and not luxuries. I know that people of the Parkway community feel the same way that I do, but are afraid to voice their opinion. I feel that financial discipline needs to be reinforced throughout these tough economic times. Thank you for allowing me to address you this evening.
Thank you very much, and you will receive a reply in writing.
Thank you.
6.0, call for a closed session, none. 7.0, approval of agenda for September 22nd, 2010. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 8.0, resolutions. Energy Awareness Month, October, and Fire Prevention Week, October 3 through 9. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.0, communications. 9.01, update on superintendent search process. And Mr. Tandy, we've completed how many focus groups at this point? 4 down and 50 or 60 to go, is that right? Say again? 13 total and 4 complete. And so that's the intent of the focus groups is to help the board construct the profile for what we're looking for in a new superintendent. So that's we're at the forward edge of the work here. And Mrs. Mogerman?
Last Thursday evening, Mrs. Feldman and I attended the PTO leadership meeting, and we stayed. We asked their permission if it was okay for us to stay and observe the focus group, and they said fine, so we sat and listened. And I just wanted to say Dr. Lawrence was the facilitator, and I thought he did a great job engaging the people. They felt comfortable speaking their mind, and I was just really happy with the way that it went. So hopefully all the others have gone the same way, too.
Excellent. We'll certainly appreciate those who have already participated and those who will participate in the future. And And there is an online survey that is live as I speak, so everyone can express themselves through that one also. So, let's see, 9.02, calendar of meetings. Oh, I'm sorry, was there any other comments on the superintendent search? Didn't want to shoot too soon there. 9.02, calendar of meetings. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, October 6, 2010 at Central Middle School starting at 7:30 p.m. 9.03, liaison reports. Start to my right here. Dr. Sortino.
Helen and I, excuse me, attended the Safety Network, and it's so impressive in terms of what parents are doing to put together the safety backpacks in each of the schools to prepare that for the year. And it's just overwhelming in terms of what parents do to make sure that we have preventative measures and also have materials and supplies if there is a need. Fred also gave a great report in terms of all of the prevention measures that are taking place in the district throughout in about every category that you could think of. And that's also very impressive that we are very concerned about safety throughout the entire district for our students and faculty and parents as well when they're in our buildings. And I thought the report was very, very good. It's neat to be part of that safety network process.
Thanks, sir. Tom?
Well, I did partake in the household hazardous waste disposal program that the St. Louis County Health Department was. This is one of the locations, and it was extremely popular. There was a nice big long line of cars and people waiting to dispose of their hazardous waste. But it's a great program.
Excellent. Thank you.
Beth and I attended a webinar on cyberbullying about, 2 weeks ago? I think 2 weeks ago. And I'll just give you a few of the statements that were presented, since cyberbullying is, I think, one of the most important issues that can face school districts today. One of the statistics, 80% of students today experience some type of bullying in the schools. 160,000 miss school each day for fear of bullying. And bullying occurs most frequently between 6th and 8th grade. 44 states have anti-bullying legislation, and Missouri is included in the 44 states. One of the things also that was discussed is the fact that there isn't any case law on cyberbullying. So what they focus on is the student speech law on and off campuses, and that comes into play. Under Title IX, schools are liable for cyberbullying if they act with deliberate indifference to student-to-student harassment. And that is, number one, that a school district, if it's known that bullying is taking place, they could be liable. If it's severely offensive, and number three, if it bars student access to an educational opportunity. So on that basis, cyberbullying can be taken under law. Also, there were several websites that you could go to further study this cyberbullying and some consequences and some lawsuits that have been attempted on cyberbullying. One of them is cybersmartcurriculum.org. It was a very, very useful webinar and workshop.
Thank you.
Also about the cyberbullying webinar that I went to, I just wanted to say I have never been to a webinar before, and I was really impressed with it. Not only did we get good information in an hour's time, but it didn't cost us anything in any travel time, and it was a minimal disruption to the day of the counselors and the others that attended the meeting. So I thought that was really great, and it was also interactive, whereas one of the counselors in our group had a question to pose to the moderator, and they did so
I think they typed in the question. There was a way to get the question to the moderator, and she answered us by name. And I thought that was a really helpful thing. So I think in the future, anything that we can do by webinar as opposed to traveling great distances, I think it's a great money saver, and it really does give you much the same result. I also attended the Prism concert at Central High last week, which is a concert that, I see Mrs. Pepper smiling, that all of the musical ensembles in Central High get to perform, the band, the orchestra, and all of the choirs, and it just gives you a little snippet of what they're working on, and I was really, really impressed, like I always am, of the great job that they're doing there.
Well, one of the great events that we have in Parkway happens once a year. This year it happened up in Parkway North, called the Student Legislative Forum. And I think we had a record number of students participate in that. There were, I know, well over 300 to 400 kids up there all participating. They covered a range of topics and an opportunity to interact with elected officials, including many members of the board. These kids really seem to be up on a lot of the things that are happening. They all have opinions on them. There were themes from national, state, even things in our city and county, and even some for the board. There was one on here that should marijuana be legalized in the state of Missouri, feelings ran high. No pun intended. But I found our students to be very passionate about the many things that we were discussing that night, and just a joy to sit there with them and find out that they really do have very strong feelings and arguments that they can put out there for many of the things that we deal with as adults. So just want to thank those that had things to do with that, Toby and Diana Stewart and so many others that helped put that on and make that a success. The students had a great time.
Okay, thanks. On August 27th, attended the PACCD admin meeting, and I thought it was a very positive exchange. Some of those have been a little testy in the past. This one I thought was very constructive, and we got a lot of information on some of the reorganization over at SSD and some changes in how they're handling the transitions, and I think particularly transition to adulthood. And I think that's an area that has needed work for some time, and I'm very encouraged by some of the tools that are available now and some of the realignment of how those resources are made available. So I think very positive development there. And then last night I attended the Special School District Governing Council, where we received the final report from the Public Review Committee, which is a state-mandated review of SSD operations, and certainly informative there. There were some blunt statements, and take those on board, but there was also some very interesting data buried in there. The extensive surveys were done, and I noted that the SSD superintendent, only 4% of district employees had a negative view of the SSD superintendent. I wondered if that might be an indication that he perhaps wasn't doing his job as well as he should, but I don't know if you have a baseline percentage, Dr. Senti, over... but did want to mention that the PBIS awards were presented, and McKelvey Elementary earned a recognition from the State Department of Education on that, so certainly want to commend them if there's anybody from McKelvey in the house. But and I will not expand on what PBIS stands for, because I kind of hit the wall with my acronyms there, but I do know that the new SSD website has an acronym button on it, so you can look that up, and I'll do that right after this meeting. But anyway, there's useful tools to be found out there. And then did want to recognize we have students from Maryville this evening, is that correct? Thank you very much for attending. I know this is a requirement, so don't be shy about coming up here and getting us to sign off on it afterwards. So, welcome.
We have
Great.
a couple students from St. Louis U also.
Oh, and SLU students also. So, oh, right here. Welcome. Any other students in the room? And where are y'all from? All right. Well, welcome to everybody. Great to have you here, and same holds. We're equal opportunity there. Any other communication items? All right. As soon as I find my agenda, we'll be back on pace here. Can I bury it? There we go. All right, 10.0, action items. Consent. And 10.02 has already been modified. 10.21 is removed. May I have a motion and a second to approve items 10.01 through 10.31 on the consent agenda?
So moved, and I love this.
Second.
And are there any questions or items that should be pulled to action or closed? And so, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Would note, Mrs. Calanda, I'm abstaining from the check previously identified to you under item 10.02. 3. Any other abstentions? Okay. 11.0, action items. 11.01, resolution to approve the tax rate ceiling. Call on Chief Financial Officer Wes Garten.
Good evening, President Major, members of the board, Dr. Senti and Ms. Calanda. I'll lift this up a little bit. We had the tax rate hearing a little bit earlier. Are there any other questions?
Anybody? Looks like you get a freebie on that one. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the resolution to set the tax rate ceiling for Parkway School District for the 2010-2011 school year and beyond for the following class of properties: residential 3.7441, agricultural 2.7500, commercial 3.8234, personal 3.7379, and debt service 0.3400.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 11.02, adoption of 2010-2011 tax rate. Call on Wes Garten again.
Well, thank you. Again, nothing to add. Questions?
Tax rate questions? Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the resolution to change the tax rate and adopt the tax rates by category as presented and the blended tax rate for the Parkway School District for 2010-2011 in the amount of 3.7574 to be distributed with a special revenue fund rate of 2.1500, general fund rate of 1.1390, capital projects rate at 0.1284, and debt service fund rate of 0.34. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry, I did ask for a motion. Jumping the gun. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garten. 12.0, we have no reports. 13.0, work session. 13.01, preliminary discussion of the early childhood program. Call on Dr. Maxey, Assistant Superintendent, and Mrs. Jean Manning, Director of Early Childhood.
I think everybody knows that Parkway has a policy, a program evaluation, where we evaluate all our curricular programs and other areas. You will be receiving at the next meeting actually a matrix and some revisions in the program evaluation policy to consider. But what we will be suggesting is that we have a preliminary discussion, which is a little different than I think it's been done in the past, where the group comes to you with a kind of a basic presentation, which you're about to hear, but then they will come back, depending kind of on the feedback they get from you, when you ask what things you would like for them to study during the year or the period of time that we decide upon. And there's lots of people taking notes. See all the notepads out there? So we'll give feedback to you shortly about what we think we heard you say, so you can react to us. That'll probably be through the Friday memo. And then later this spring or maybe even next fall, we'll come back with the actual evaluation. So Bonnie Maxey is going to lead us off.
Well, good evening, President Major, Vice President Jacobs, Board Directors, Dr. Senti, and Ms. Kalanda. We welcome this opportunity to begin a discussion in preparation for an evaluation of Parkway's early childhood education. So as Don mentioned, we have this brief presentation which will highlight all of the programs and also to provide an overview of the preschool curriculum, which is now accessible through the website. Background information: our early childhood education program provides services to approximately 3,500 families through the Parents as Teachers program, developmental screening, early childhood special education, parent-child interaction classes, and the preschool program. So with last year's administrative retirements, we have several new educators leading these programs, and at this time I would like to introduce Jean Manning, the new Director of Early Childhood Education. Previously, Jean served for 11 years as our preschool coordinator and also brings a broad background of experiences with all of the other programs in early childhood. She led the staff development work with the writing of the preschool curriculum and also helped to guide the work in entering the curriculum online. So Jean will introduce the administrative team and present an overview of the programs and the preschool curriculum at this time. Jean?
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity, President Major, Vice President Jacobs, members of the board, Dr. Senti, and Ms. Kalanda. I'd like to begin, as Bonnie said, by introducing our new team members. Julie Bomance is the Parent-Child Program Coordinator. Stand, Julie. Julie's been with Parkway for many, many years in many different roles, and we're really happy that she's still here. Carrie Wetzel is the Parents as Teachers Coordinator. She comes to us from Ladue School District. And Mary Kreckler is the new preschool coordinator, and she comes to us from St. Louis Public Schools. That's our team. Thank you. Early childhood education serves the youngest children in Parkway School District. As Bonnie said, the parents and children birth through 5 years of age participate in a variety of programs. Our mission is, as the Parkway mission, to ensure the development of young children who are capable, curious, confident learners who understand and respond to the challenges of an ever-changing world of elementary school. An update of each program will be discussed, and then we'll talk about the online curriculum guide. Parents as Teachers. This is the 26th year of Parents as Teachers in Parkway. Began in 1986, and actually my youngest son was in the program, was one of the first people in the program in Parkway. It's an opportunity for families with young children to get education and support to give the young children the best possible start in life. Families receive a minimum of 4 home visits a year, and the home visits are made by parent educators who are educators specially trained in child development from children birth to 5 years of age. Information is shared with the parents regarding their child's unique needs and stages of development. Additional learning opportunities are provided for families. We offer parent workshops and family activity sessions in the evenings and on Saturdays. They also receive a developmental screening, and families with high needs are of particular focus this year due to the changes in funding from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We are focusing on serving families with very low birth weight, families that have a low income or chemical dependencies. These are just some examples of the high needs categories: involvement of mental health agencies or social services, teen parents. And these families receive additional home visits, but we've been very fortunate. Parkway is funding serving all the families in Parkway, so we still have continued to serve the remainder of the families with the 4 home visits. Last year, there were 2,269 families served by 28 part-time parent educators. Developmental screening is another program that's been offered in Parkway since 1986. It's also a required program. Research has shown repeatedly the importance of early intervention, and early intervention has a long-lasting impact on how children develop, their ability to learn, and their capacity to regulate their emotions. Screening team in our district has a unique way of looking at children's development, and they do it through play. Children show their highest level of functioning and their highest level of development when you observe them in a play-based setting. If children do have a suspected delay, they are referred to special school district for further diagnostic assessment to determine eligibility for early childhood special education services. The Parent-Child Interaction Program is a fee-based program, and it was developed as part of strategic planning in 1990. Parents and children have the opportunity to participate together in a variety of classes and learn and interact with other parents and children. It's a wonderful way for parents to meet other families that have young children in the community. One of the more popular classes is Kids Morning Out, and this is for children 2.5 to 3-year-olds who missed the cutoff for preschool. And Wonderful Ones and Infant Massage are examples of other programs that parents and children participate. We served 576 families in the Parent-Child Interaction Program approximately every year. Early childhood special education is offered by a special school district, and it provides intervention for children who are found eligible for special education services, and they have to meet the Missouri state criteria for the diagnosis of young child with a developmental delay. It is a required program, and it's funded by state and federal money. Children are eligible for these services beginning on their 3rd birthday. Last year, 386 children received special education services. Currently, there are 213 children enrolled, but children enroll continuously throughout the year, so we anticipate approximately the same number of children will be served this school year. There is an extensive range of services to meet the individual needs of children. Many children leave us and go on to kindergarten receiving very little special education or, minimal service as they move into elementary school. The Parkway Preschool program is our next program. It's been operating since 1995, I believe. We have about 14 classes at 7 locations throughout the district. We have received over $1.8 million through the Missouri Preschool Project grant. So we're very happy that we've received these funds. They do provide financial help for families that need help with paying tuition, which is much more often this year and the past year than has ever been in the program. It also has allowed us to open several new classrooms in the district and to fund teacher salaries. Currently, there are 313 children enrolled in preschool. This number is also not static. Children enroll continuously throughout the year as families move into the district. We do follow the same cutoff for kindergarten, so children have to be 3 before their 3rd birthday. Before August 1st, I'm sorry. Last year, approximately 375 children were enrolled. We are committed to providing a rich and inclusive environment, so we have children with special needs in the program, typically about 18%. We have many children who are enrolled and begin as English language learners and speak little or no English. They do have very diverse experiences, all the children, and they range in age developmentally from about 2 to 6 years of age. So everyone that comes in, pretty much as you see in elementary school when they start kindergarten, there's a wide range of development as they enter this program. Project Construct is the curriculum that is approved and endorsed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and it's based on what we know about how young children learn and develop. This curriculum allows children to construct knowledge through interactions with peers and other adults as they actively explore their physical and social environments. Project Construct is rigorous, it's contextualized, it's problem-based, and it's learner-centered. Children are not taught discrete skills, but they're encouraged to hypothesize and predict, to pose questions, defend and revise answers, and research their ideas. They're also encouraged to imagine, investigate, and invent. And they do gain a deep understanding of the core content areas through play and as the teachers design the curriculum throughout the day. They also learn to work collaboratively with adults and peers and to be lifelong problem solvers. This curriculum is aligned with the Missouri Early Learning Standards, and these standards describe what young children should know and be able to accomplish before they enter kindergarten. Our preschool teachers have degrees in early childhood or early childhood special education. The teachers do meet twice a month, and they study curriculum, and the preschool coordinator and I visit and observe a curriculum at every visit. Last year, the online curriculum guide was developed, and this curriculum, it follows the child development, and then it also looks at what they call domains, but they are aligned with regular learning similar to the subjects in school. The socio-moral domain focuses on social and personal development. The cognitive domain focuses on math and science. Representational domain focuses on language development and literacy, and then symbolic expression, art, construction, music, pretend play, and movement. Physical development focuses on health and safety and motor skills. Each course encompasses units that reflect the pre-K standards. Currently, this curriculum is available to staff online, and you all would be able to view it after the board approves it. Then it'll be available to parents and the community. We are going to add lesson plans. We wrote the basic curriculum, and then this year, as our studies continue for professional development, we'll be adding lesson plans to the curriculum guide. I wanted to show you how to access it. And if you are, I'm sure you're all familiar with going to Inside Parkway. This part, I'm going to go in and demonstrate just so you have a little bit better idea. I have to figure out how to do this microphone. Maybe I can just take it off. If you pull down in the Get Courses by Curriculum area, you'll see Early Childhood Education and Preschool, and then you go into the courses. On the left side of the page, we have an introduction, and then the rationale behind the curriculum, why it's beneficial to children. You go back to the courses. For example, in the cognitive domain, there is information about this domain. So you have a description of it, the course expectations, and I'm looking to see the units of instruction. So the units can be accessed this way, or you can go back. And the units, there are different units in each area, and they follow the standards. So they're typically looking at the standards, and I'll just show you one. This is mathematical thinking, logical thinking, and if you look at the time frame, because we start out with 3-year-olds and they leave us at 5, in the desired results, this is aligned with the Missouri Early Learning Standards. So you'll see We use the numbers that they're given there. It's not really the same as the GLEs in the other grades, but there are math and science. And then we do focus heavily on developing social skills. In the social emotional area, there are dispositions for learning, and it's very important that children have the ability to attend and focus and be part of a group, regulate their emotions and their bodies in order to learn. If they have those things in place, then usually they can learn pretty easily the academic areas. So those are included in everything that we do throughout the day. And then you have assessment, and then learning experiences, as I said, will be added throughout this school year. I would like to introduce now, I brought many of our teachers are here and parent educators, but Maureen Wickedy and Kim Sonderman are now going to talk a little bit about how this curriculum looks in the program. So I'm going to let Maureen.
Good evening. Let's see if I can put this back. I would like to start by discussing the social-moral domain. We have some sample pictures from the classroom just to show examples of the children's work and how it is related to the enduring understandings and the essential questions that we're working on. In this picture, there was a student who, upon the introduction of new materials, we have these small white lampshades that were added to the block center. He started building volcanoes. And as time progressed, he started making lava monsters. And this was something that he built individually on his own, but then began collaborating with peers. Other kids wanted to work with him. And so within this project, they started working together, communicating with one another, and for him to go from an individual project to including his friends, it took a lot of negotiating and compromising. So we were working on that essential question, how can you share your ideas and feelings with friends? Encouraging that communication piece. And that is under the umbrella of the Enduring Understanding. Children collaborate on class projects with peers. Another example of that same enduring understanding, our friendships, as Jean mentioned, we work on the social-emotional piece throughout the entire year, everything we do. But we're always talking about relationships with peers, being part of a classroom community, and that developing friendship piece as part of our classroom between our initial instruction in August all the way through to May. And what the children do in each of the centers, really working together, they're learning what it means to be a friend, what that looks like, what that sounds like. And then also under that same enduring understanding, another essential question is, how can we work together? These students decided they made a plan that they wanted to build a pirate ship. And in the block center, having 5 kids working together to make this pirate ship, it took so much negotiating, collaborating, a lot of communication. And they decided that they were going to add a flag. They put fabric on top, and each child shared a role, yet had to kind of make sure that that was okay with the other kids, what they were playing and how they were planning that. And so these are examples of, in our day-to-day classroom, how the kids are meeting these goals. I'm going to pass on to Kim Sonderman, who's going to talk about the cognitive domain.
Good evening. I'd like to talk about the cognitive domain, especially the mathematical thinking and logical thinking. As you see here, the children are engaged in what we would call the Math and Game Center, which is in all of our classrooms. The enduring understanding here is children really use their newly constructed logical thinking skills to solve meaningful problems. Here we have magnet tiles where the children are exploring their building. And one of the things the children looked at me and they said, look, see how tall my castle is. And then the other children corresponded and said, mine can be taller, mine can be bigger. So here for the essential questions, how are these objects the same, how are they different, and how they can just collaborate and work together. Under our next one, under mathematical thinking and logical thinking, children like to show number and quantity. Here you have just simple board games. It's a simple game where the children roll the dice. It helps them to reinforce their ability to count using one-to-one, using sequence, and just their ability to follow a simple path in a game. Under our next mathematical thinking, logical thinking, again, we have children will develop logical thinking skills through social interactions, and how objects can be compared is our essential question. Here we have children playing a board game called Snail's Pace Race, and in this race, children roll a dice and the snails move up, but they're also able to compare who will be first, who will be last. So they do a lot of communication, and they do a lot of comparing and predicting. Ordinal numbers are used, such as first, last, and second. Maureen?
In the representational domain, that's where we do most of our reading and writing work. This example is a student who, we were working on the enduring understanding, children view themselves as writers. And this little boy was in our pretend play area. He wrote a note and then brought it to me. He's a 3-year-old student. And he said, it was, I don't know if you can tell, there's strings of letters. A, I, O. He knew that those letters had meaning when put together. But as a 3-year-old, he wasn't exactly sure what sounds they made and what that would mean. So he brought it to me and he said, "What did I write?" And this is an example that he had that understanding that print carries meaning. Developmentally, he wasn't quite to the place where he was sounding out words yet, but he knew, he viewed himself as a writer. He knew he wrote something, wasn't sure what it was, but he knew that he was a writer. Our next picture is, these were another block creation. This was a day where students decided we were going to have a Mizzou-Nebraska football game in our block center. They built a stadium. We had 2 sides. This is the Mizzou end zone. On the other side, it was labeled with an N. And the children, the enduring understanding we were working on was children use writing to communicate with others. They were communicating where the fans had to sit and made sure that we sat on according to our cheering preferences on the correct side. So we had half the kids, more than half, on the Mizzou side, and then we had our Nebraska fan cheering for his team on the other side. But the interesting part especially was when our Mizzou fan was making the sign to label the end zone, he had memorized the M-I-Z-Z-O-U cheer, so he was using that as a resource in his writing, and he knew that was how to label the end zone. So he was understanding one of the reasons why people write is to communicate that meaning. Our next example.
And were you able to make the children understand that the N does stand for knowledge?
Our last example under representational domain, children are readers and writers. And this little girl was playing with 2 other friends in our pretend play center, which at that time was set up as a kitchen. They were discussing what they were going to make for dinner. So she got out some blankets, laid some fabric on, pulled out a cookbook, and started looking through to decide what she was going to prepare for dinner. We have cookbooks available. The other 2 children decided that was a great idea. They got out cookbooks too, and then they made a plan for what they were going to prepare. So this is an example that the children know books are a resource in their learning, and that's where they got their ideas from about what to prepare, and then a teacher helped them with the ingredients, and they made a plan from there.
Up next, we have our physical development domain, where children develop for personally meaningful purposes. In this picture here, you see myself, and we're doing some rhythm and things. Music and movement would be one of my most favorite times with the children. As we like to say in preschool, who has the rhythm? So we start with the simple, basic clapping and things, and what you see here is that children have the opportunity to move to music. The song that we're doing here is Jim Gill, The List of Dances. There's 16 dances. And children love to use movement, creative movement, as a physical outlet in the classroom. Through this, they were able to move their bodies, doing the twirl, the curl, do the up, the down, the tiptoe, do the go slow, fast. So they were learning very creative movements throughout the day. Here we have some young girls that are just doing their beautiful scarf dance. We had just finished reading a book called Color Dance, and children love to incorporate music and movement into play. Throughout the day, when you come into one of our classrooms, you might hear some classical music. This is what we had going on here. We had the Nutcracker Ballet, and then we switched to the Butterfly. And the girls were just exploring different types of movement and how that their scarves could flow around and just how their bodies move in space. And last we have here, under the physical again, where children throughout our center play and throughout, sometimes during our arrival times, children will need opportunities to, say, decompress, to just be acclimated to their environment. So children enjoy, again, using their movement and music and play. The children here are experimenting with jumping. How high can I go? And sometimes, the children will all start communicating. This is a large part of the children's day. They just really enjoy singing, counting, turn-taking, and socializing. They love to wait in line and just be a part of the group. Jean?
Thank you, Kim and Maureen. I'd like to just end with some of the trends that we're now seeing in early childhood. The number of dual language learners has increased throughout the United States, and it's very apparent in our programs. There's an increase in the number of children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders. A greater number of children that come into our programs have social and emotional delays, very serious mood disorders, severe behavior difficulties in the classroom, things such as depression. And many families are under extreme stress due to loss of employment, as we observe many more families applying for scholarships for preschool. So in closing, I would like to just recognize several people who helped us with our online curriculum guide, Alima Ahmad and Carol Conan from Technology, our support staff, Joy Bazell and Carolyn Lyons, who typed much of the information that was written and entered it into the guide, and then the preschool teachers for all their hard work in writing and developing. This was a huge project. It's a curriculum we've used for many years, and it was quite a task to get it into the district format and use the guide, but I think it'll be a really valuable resource for us as we continue to learn and grow together. I'd like to thank all of you, the Board of Education and the administration, for your continued support in early childhood education. Thank you. Questions?
I forgot to introduce Nathan Tyson, who's back in the back. I suppose everybody knows him. Nathan, would you stand up for a second? He's actually in charge of the program evaluation program in Parkway. So while he certainly won't do all the work, he'll be kind of the overseer of all the program evaluations. So we need your questions and comments. Helen?
I just want to thank you and your team. That was a great presentation. However, I do have an issue with one aspect of it. As a Nebraska alum, I know there's more than one Nebraska fan. We please work on that.
Okay. We'll try to recruit some more.
Right.
I think there were probably weren't there two? Probably a couple of Kansas Jayhawks.
Oh, yeah, many, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
I just have a question. You mentioned the scholarships. What scholarships are available to preschool families? Occasionally we'll get asked that question.
We have the money from the grants, and then we have some donations that we use, and families will call us, come in and apply. They meet with us, and then we use the free and reduced lunch guidelines. And it's a sliding scale, so families pay what they can afford. And we have seen many families are so appreciative of the opportunity, and they know that their children will start kindergarten, really ready for school if they participate. We've had many families that really, of course, are embarrassed to even apply and just appreciate any opportunity, and they will pay much more than we think they can probably really afford. We work with them on the amount, and usually, even if they're out of work for a period of time or there's some medical needs in the family, as soon as they're back on their feet, then they pay the full amount of tuition. So we don't really feel like it's being abused, but it really offers the opportunity for so many children to attend preschool. So
thank you. That's good to know.
I just want to say thank you for the excellent presentation itself. Is this the faculty in general?
Yeah, this
is
many of them.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. We really appreciate that very, very much, and thanks for the presentation. It was great. One question I have relative to the fact that you have children up to the age of 6. How do you differentiate, for these children when you have that kind of range?
Well, the teachers are very skilled at adapting and modifying curriculum, so as a child enters at 3, even if they participate in similar centers, they're going to attack the program differently. The teachers will have an activity for exploration, and then they gear it down or up depending on the needs of the child. So they can actually do it on the spot. They'll ask higher level questions. So the children will have to think about it. They'll expect higher level responses. With older children who are more able, they'll offer them additional opportunities to read, to write, and to build those skills. So and actually the teachers probably can tell you exactly what they do because they're very skilled at it. We work very hard at helping them learn how to do that, and looking at development. We have a lot of children that have behavioral issues, and teachers will put really definite strategies in place to help them. They'll use adaptive equipment or deep pressure, movement activities. If they see that a child can't attend, they'll offer them opportunities to move and then be able to sit and attend. So it's a whole wide range of services. I'm not sure that's a very detailed
That's fine.
answer,
That's
but-
great. Thank you.
Mr. Jacob?
Gene, thank you very much again, and to your wonderful faculty, too. Maybe it's appropriate that this first evaluation starts with these younger children, where it really starts, because if we do a good job here, then I think it'll just extend itself as it gets into elementary and goes beyond that. I'm sure that the socio-moral domain could appropriately be used at higher levels so that we learn how to share our feelings in appropriate ways.
Maybe at the board level?
Especially at the adult level.
Yeah.
A couple of things I'd just like, as you go through this study, that I hope you would consider. This is a learning process. We're not doing this because there's necessarily anything wrong with anybody's program, but we can always improve. And when we take this kind of opportunity, we learn things, and hopefully we will improve greatly. I congratulate you on having the online curriculum now. That I know that's been an effort, and it's wonderful. And I'm hopeful that as you look at it, you'll see that it's nicely aligned with the elementary one and complements it very well. The same thing with these several hundred students. If you would look to make sure that there's a process in place that really hands them off to elementary, so that kindergarten teacher is well aware of the good and the bad. If somebody has an IEP, then they're ready and prepared for it, and they can do a better job with their kids. And I don't know enough about play-based or other instructional, but I suspect that the best thing is probably some kind of hybrid that goes across the different methods of instructing these kind of young kids.
Right. And I know we're participating in a study of kindergarten curriculum. The early childhood staff is participating with kindergarten teachers and other people throughout the district. And one of the things is to look at curriculum in both areas and, of course, the consistency across the district. We are always looking at better ways for transition. In fact, at a staff meeting on Monday, we were talking about, are we informing kindergarten teachers? We send portfolios, and we sometimes make phone calls, and we have a form in place that we use for when children enter Jump Start to kindergarten that we think is helpful. But somehow there's a little break in the connection. Sometimes we'll hear about kids that aren't doing well from their parents, and we so wish that teachers would call us. So we're looking at a way that maybe we can help communicate that right up front so that teachers see it at the beginning of the school year in addition to Jump Start, because it's not usually the same teacher. Not always, sometimes. So that's a good suggestion.
I've been through it. All three of my kids went through early childhood, and provided some sanity for my wife, and it was a great program then. I'm sure it's better now, and will become even better as we have a chance to look at what we're doing and ask ourselves, how can we do better? Because I know everybody here believes, and I know you and your staff believe too, that the kids are what really matters. And that's how we'd spend just about any money we could if we knew that it was going to be spent wisely and really make us complete that mission that we're committed to. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Beth?
Thanks, Jane. That was a great presentation. I have some questions that I guess could be not necessarily answered tonight, but put into your evaluation.
Okay.
So my first question has to do with your fees, whether or not the revenue that we generate from the fees, what part of the program that actually covers, how the fees are determined, what percentage of the fees are paid in full by parents, and what percent is paid by scholarship or on a sliding scale. My next question has to do, and some of these are probably for Nathan, the enrollment trends. Like I noticed you had 375 children, was it last year, and then just over 300 children this year, so I'm wondering what the trend is, and if you can identify any reasons why the trend does go up and down in kind of big numbers.
Yeah, we do have fewer children in parents as teachers, and we know that certain areas of the district have fewer young children living in them now, and as they're turning over and regreening, then we're starting to see peaks in those areas and more children enrolled. We used to have waiting lists and a number of years ago, and we actually had an additional classroom that we closed because of enrollment. One of the biggest changes has been in the full-day preschool program, and we think that's due to job loss, is that parents no longer need that, so they're enrolling in half-day. We try to make sure that the tuition is in line with community preschools. In some cases, our tuition is a little bit higher, but we offer scholarships and most of the private schools don't. But we have degreed and certified teachers, and so their salaries, warrant that our fees are a little bit higher, but they're not outrageous. Our full day is comparable to other full day programs in the community.
What hours does the full day cover?
From 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening, and next year it will be 6:45 a.m. till 6 p.m.
Thank you. Is there any data, or will you be able to show us any data about the gains that our children coming from our early childhood program show against their peers that have not gone through a program, both when they enter kindergarten and, say, when they get to grade 3?
Actually, that's something that we've been wanting to do anyway, because we did a longitudinal study many years ago, and we had planned to do another one, so we definitely will look at that. That'd be a great thing to look at. They're writing it.
Summer programs?
We have a summer camp at the Early Childhood Center. We weren't able to have it last year because we were under construction, but we do have a 4-week summer camp. Parents and children, and then Early Childhood Special Education has a summer program also.
So parents that rely on you for their daycare while they're at work really don't have an option during the summer?
We don't have full day right now in the summer. What we found is we did a survey of parents, and because many of the children in our program, their parents are teachers, they don't need summer care, and then we tried to decide could we have it even at one location and pull kids in, but people did not want to drive from ISC to the Early Childhood Center, or from the South area to Early Childhood on a daily basis. So we didn't have enough interest to do it in the past. Most families like the program enough that if they need summer care, they're usually able to do a summer camp or an additional program, or have a private provider for the summer. So that's what's been happening now. We certainly could look into that.
I have another question about food allergies. I think Robin was talking about our students with food allergies before when she was making her nurse's little talk. And I have a kid with a food allergy, so I'm always interested in the trends in this. And I'm wondering if anybody's studying the trends of our kids coming in with food allergies into your program and then into kindergarten, and tracking the numbers as the kids get older. How many drop off and how many new ones come on?
We could certainly look at that. We see many more children come in with allergies than ever before, and every classroom has children with EpiPens in it, and we're seeing a variety of food allergies. It's becoming fairly common, but we could certainly look at that long term to see what.
And then my last question has to do with technology. Is there any technology that's appropriate for their ages, and if so, do you have any, and are you using it?
The teachers have technology.
I'm talking about for your older students.
We have some things. We have document cameras and some things that we're using in the classroom. Our feeling traditionally is that our children already spend a lot of time in front of screens in other parts of the day, and the most meaningful learning for young children is that they are actively involved with the environment, and they're really not when they're using a screen. But we've used parts of it, and we use some things if it enhances the learning. If, like for a science activity, they'll use a document camera and blow things up on the wall, or to read a story so that all the children can see the pictures in the book. So we are starting to use some more things, but we really don't want to focus heavily on that because we know that that isn't really the best way that they learn.
Thank you.
How do you go about sharing student progress with parents? Do you have conferences?
We have conferences twice a year, and then we meet regularly. Our teachers are always available, and the parent educators, of course, are in the home working with parents. We have a preschool checklist, which is considered our report card, and they're given written information about progress, and then we have other checklists and things that we look at and document for our assessment process. So they are assessed throughout the year.
You mentioned that the increased number of children with autism diagnosed on autism spectrum disorder. Do you see many kids dropping off of that? And also, when a child does have autism, how do the teachers interface with the therapists and the parents, because the therapist is working with the parents as well?
Well, the rooms that we have children with special needs in our class, so we work collaboratively as a team. So the therapist and the teachers, special ed and gen ed, meet regularly, plan activities and plan things for the child in the classroom. We communicate all the time about the teachers all attend the IEPs, and they work together to make a plan for the child. There are some children that are in self-contained early childhood special education classes, so that's a separate team from ours. But we do work, we're in contact every day with our parents, because they actually bring the students into the classroom and drop them off, so they can chat if they need to, not in front of the child, but we can talk about progress and make phone calls at other times. Was there another part of that question that I didn't answer, or I'm not sure if I got the whole thing?
Do you see many kids dropping off autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, or?
We do see children that are diagnosed with autism, with pervasive developmental disorder, autism spectrum disorder. Our feeling is that from looking at children for many years is that they probably really didn't have the disorder if it goes away. There are children that have language delays and other developmental delays that present as with autistic-like characteristics, but once they get intervention and service, they aren't anymore. We do see children that look less involved, and they make a lot of progress, but many times they still have delays, or they still have characteristics. They learn to adapt, and the curriculum teaches them how to be in the world. But depending on the involvement and the severity, depends on whether it's minimal service as they go to kindergarten or not. So it really depends on the individual child.
I have a couple of questions, and again, like Beth said, the point of tonight is not for you to be able to answer all these questions.
Oh, okay.
Because these are what things that you might want to study. Mm-hmm. I was surprised. Kathy and is trying to get me to keep saying we're a pre-K through 12 school district, and the people in Clayton tried to make me say that too, and so I'm almost there. So if we think we're a pre-K through 12 school district, I'm curious as to why really only 375 kids take advantage of preschool programs. And that's about, I think I did my math a little bit, that's 30 to 40% of all the potential kids. So I would wonder why that is. So if you could survey somehow the parents about, I'm pretty sure that almost all our kids go to preschool somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong. So that's the first question, is, do your kids go to preschool? And then the second one is, if so, where and why? Is it finances? Is it whatever? And I was surprised you said you dropped a 5-day.
No, we had a half day at the Early Childhood Center. At one time, we had 3 general education classes. We had a long waiting list, so we opened a morning session, and then we didn't have as many children. The enrollment has been declining, but we looked at it as a trend throughout the district, that there are fewer children in the district. I've talked to several of the private providers in the past year, and their enrollment is declining also. They're part of our grant, so I have relationships with all of them.
That's part of what I hope you could find out, because it would seem to me in this economy, when people have to both work, that it would be exactly the opposite, that people would need 5-day programs with before and after care. And I don't know, but this is a big place. Maybe the 70 square miles.
Yeah, it does.
With one place to go to whoever, whatever, but just kind of that sort of thing. And I'd like to repeat Chris's sort of question about transition, the plans that transition between our current program and our kindergarten program.
Do you specifically mean transition for general education or special education, or both?
Just both.
All children?
Just what kind of communication? I came from a really little district where I've been working for a while, and it was amazing with only 3 elementary schools how hard it was just to transition the few number of kids we had, so that the kindergarten, it's just, is it as nice as going from 1 to 2 or K to 1? Is it from pre-K to K?
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anything else? Well, Jean, thank you very much. Really an outstanding presentation tonight.
Thank you.
And again, this is not an inquisition. And just so you all know, we're engaging in this process. It's something that we have a policy on that, il.g, if anybody cares and wants to look it up. And if you go to the administrative guidelines of that policy, you'll find out that our program evaluation procedures and requirements will vary with the type of program or intervention being evaluated. And there are Section A, B, C, and D. And I think those were intended to be, everything will fit into one of those. And I think any fair reading of that, early childhood would touch on all 4. Dr. Tyson, is that fair to say? So I think one of the things that will probably come out of this process with y'all this year is a rewrite of this policy. And so I look forward to y'all informing our operations.
Actually, we'll be giving that to you October 6th.
Oh, wow. And then I did have a couple of specific questions, and Gene, I think you know me well enough that there's a reason I went to law school and not med school, and it was math. So I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm just trying to crunch them in my own mind. You indicated there's 375 or so children in the preschool program, and then 213 more or less in the receiving early childhood special education services. And then you also mentioned there was kind of those are not two exclusive universes, is that right?
Right. Well, there are some of those children who receive services are actually in general education preschool. Some are in a special education program and in general education preschool as a separate program. So, they're all, and we add kids throughout the year as they do, as children are identified with special needs.
Okay. So do you have a notion of the total number that are received, combined number in preschool? And is that the same age group we're dealing with, the early childhood special ed is 3 to 5 also? So
do you mean the number of students that aren't in, that are just counted one time? Is that?
I'm looking at 375 and 213. Do I add those two together and there's that many children in the program, or are some of those counted twice?
Some of them are counted twice.
Okay.
I would say probably the students that are in the team taught classrooms are in the special education list, and then in ours, and that would be, I would say maybe about 40 children.
Okay.
50 maybe.
You got me to do my math over again. I think there's about 1,000 kindergartners in the district, right? Is that about right? So when and if you said there are 375 or 300, that's really in more than one grade, age level, right? So there's some 4-year-olds and some 3-year-olds. So really, it's not 30 or 40% of the population. It's probably less than that. If you figure out the percentage of a particular cohort group or whatever grade level, so that would I'd even be more curious about that.
Okay.
And then I have enjoyed my encounter with the online curriculum guide and my detour into the DESI's early learning standards, which was definitely a detour. Does anybody else have conceptual?
It's hard to find it.
Yeah. First, you got to find it, and then to try to figure out what it means struck me as there's some less than clear signposts out there from the state. Is that?
Do you mean the actual standards, or are getting to them on the website?
No, the standards.
The actual
themselves.
standards.
Are they a useful
Oh, yeah, they're very
guide
useful.
to instruction, or are they? Okay.
When we studied, these standards came out, they haven't, it's been maybe 5 or 6 years since they wrote them, and they're writing some national standards now that's in progress for early childhood. When we look at those, if children accomplish those, they flow right into the kindergarten standards.
Do they?
Of
Okay.
DESE, yeah. So
We'll have to have an offline conversation, and you can
Okay.
help me make those links. And then I guess my final question had to do with...
I guess, Bruce, the biggest difference is in early childhood, it's based on development, and when you move to kindergarten, it's more on academic areas. So that's probably why you're seeing that disconnect. Maybe. I don't know, but that's why it looks different.
So as far as internally for us, though, are there assessments that go on during the year? So,
Oh, yeah.
We've got data to track progress, if you will, for
we have
3, 4, and
documentation.
5-year-olds within the... Okay. Well, I guess the other number I wanted to follow up with was I thought I knew all the preschool teachers, but I guess I don't if there's that many children enrolled. So what's your preschool staff right now?
We have 10 teachers, and we have 14 assistants, teacher assistants. We have 10 classrooms, preschool classrooms. They teach, if they're in half day, they have 3 different classrooms of kids.
Okay.
So that's why the numbers...
I was worried about you're
not
not
like
really
20.
in there with 37.
It's not like
3,
20
4, and
kids per
5-year-olds,
class.
right?
It's 18 times 3
Okay.
for half day.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks for the presentation.
All right, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Anything else?
Thank you all very much, and your entire staff. And then I know you all would love to stick around for the rest of the excitement, but if you would take a few minutes here, and if the early childhood staff would like to beat feet, you're more than welcome. Thin herd substantially.
It is kind of a small enrollment, isn't it? I don't know why I thought
All right, 14.0 policy review. 14.01, call on Liz Morrison. Policy GCIA.BP&G, staff development.
she is here.
Good evening, President Major, Dr. Senti, Ms. Calanda, members of the board.
Cha-ching! Okay. Questions to the right?
Questions, yes. Do you want me to go over it with you, or how do you guys want me to present this?
I had a comment.
Oh,
Mrs. Mogerman?
great.
I loved seeing the mission, vision, and learning principles of the Parkway School District inserted in there. We're going to see that more and more, but this is, I think, the first time I've really seen that. And maybe it's because it's in red ink, but it really jumped out at me. I just wanted to comment on that.
Well, that's great.
Any other questions or comments? You're off the hook.
All right, thank you.
And I guess before I call up anybody else, are there any questions on 14.02 or 14.03?
As is here for 1402, it's just...
I'll just give you a quick update.
Okay.
There's really two language additions, cyberbullying and electronic communications have been added to the current policy. A little bit of restructuring on the policy just to clarify some things, but those are the two major changes.
Okay.
Desi, we have a policy, but do we have a process that students feel comfortable to report it?
A reporting process other than just connecting with an adult in the building? Not a systematic district-wide process, no. Each school has different systems and different programs put up.
So I'm just afraid a lot of students will feel like, well, I don't really have a safe way that I can report it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we looked at a system last year that a district in Texas was using, and kind of that had been brought to our attention, but kind of handed that over to where Paul is with the task force and school climate, and so I know they're looking at sending out some bullying surveys now, investigating it more. So,
okay. Super.
Do we have any staff development on implementing responses?
You know, Beth, you were one of the first things that we've been working on. You know, is really some of the cyberbullying webinars. So it's really just starting to get hit. I know Julie Harrison, who had been
right. That was just like a handful of people. I'm talking about a more broad-based thing.
No, that's what I mean. It's we want to use those opportunities to start branching out, and for those people to take it back to their schools and do some development with their departments.
I think I know of one school that's developing a program for parents in October. Jason is working on that, I think. Internet for parents to be more aware of what their kids do on the internet or something.
We're working on a program in Williamsville for Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October.
Great. All right. Thank you. And no questions on the bids, quotations, and requirements policy? If there are no questions, those policies will be moved to the consent agenda on October 6th. 15.0, call for a special meeting, none. 16.0, call for closed meeting, October 6, 2010. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education call for a closed meeting on October 6, 2010 at 6:30 p.m. and or immediately following the regular meeting at Central Middle School for the purpose of considering 1, legal actions, causes of actions, or litigation involving the district and any confidential or privileged communication between the district or its representatives and its attorneys, 610.021.1. 2, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees by the district when personal information about the employee is discussed or recorded, 610.021.3. 3, preparations on behalf of the district or its representatives for negotiations with employee groups, including any discussion or work product, 610.021.9. 4, individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, and records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment, 610.021.13.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Kalanda?
Mr. Applebaum?
Yes.
Mrs. Castillo?
Yes.
Mrs. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. Jacob?
Yes.
Ms. Overman?
Yes.
Dr. Seuss?
Yes.
Dr. Major?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. 17.0 recess, 18.0 closed meeting. 19.0, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much for your attendance, and good night.